Everyone is going to get an objection at one point or another in the sales process. The key is, how do you properly overcome that objection without putting your prospect off, but helping them to make better decisions? In this episode, we're going to give you exactly that formula and to tell you how you can utilize it so easily. You're going to love it. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another great episode of the Sales Evangelist Podcast. I'm your host, Donald C. Kelly, the Sales Evangelist. And I'm so excited for another great episode. I'm so excited to be here with you today. And on this episode, we have Marcus Chan. Marcus and I go way back a minute, man. We're both a part of several communities. And one of the things that I love about Marcus is his genuineness and his knowledge. He comes with years of experience. And one of the things that I love about him, he'll talk about this in his intro, about how he is 10 years in the 10 promotions and how he's had some amazing success over that time period, which led him to the point where he runs his own organization right now, where he helps coach and guides individuals like you and me to help us improve our sales game. If this is your first time watching this podcast or listening to it, go ahead and subscribe. If you've been listening for a minute but haven't done so already, please go ahead and leave us a review. It would be greatly appreciated. As we dive in today, Marcus is going to break down his process, how he overcomes objection, how he works with clients, and how you can take advantage of this. Very simple, but powerful. Let's go ahead and dive in. Marcus, welcome to the show, man.
Dude, I'm pumped to be here. Always great to see you.
You know, I appreciate that. I'm really looking forward to this. And I remember when we started chatting, the fact that, we got the same wardrobe together was a critical component. We planned this strategically, right?
That's the most important thing, is how we dress has got to be similar. And we think similarly too. That's cool too.
Yeah. But it's a really, go back to why do you wear the similar attire?
So I think we get decision fatigue all the time, which is like making a bunch of micro decisions. And for me, clothes by itself, like, it doesn't bring like a ton of value to me. Like, I want to look fine, look clean, and then I'm good with that. And for me, if I can wear basically the same thing every single day, that's one less decision I have to make about that. I'd much rather take that energy and apply towards my business or my family instead.
Come on, man. I'll tell you, man. And I just find it's very simple, as that simple idea too. And remember when I first heard about Steve Jobs doing that, I was like, is it really going to save that much time? But it does. Like in the morning time, I just go in the closet and it's going to be a black tee more than likely. Maybe it's a different type of black tee.
That's the lit. I have like 20 black V-necks. I have like a few other colors to spice it up. But I'm like, come on, it's going to be the same. It'll be my Lululemon ABC pants and it'll be a black V-neck.
Come on, man. Come on. You can find me a mile away.
That's it, man.
Well, listen, Marcus, I bragged about you a little bit there, man. I talked to people about the great things you're doing, helping sellers, especially those who are in AE position to improve their sales game. But I'm not as great as bragging about you as you are. And why don't you take a second and go a little bit deeper and tell us a little bit more about what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, I'm Marcus Chen. I'm a founder of Venly Consulting Group, and I work directly with B2B sales professionals or account executives, helping them earn an additional $100,000 more each year in commissions alone. And before I did this, I was actually in corporate America for over 14 years, worked for two major Fortune 500 companies. I actually started one of the worst reps, almost got fired in the last recession, made just an insane amount of mistakes, eventually did pretty well, got promoted 10 times in 10 years, got to a point where I was running a sales org of over 110 plus employees. And that was a lot of fun until I decided to leave it all behind, go all into my side hustle, and make it a main hustle.
Come on, man. Congratulations on that. Super awesome.
Thank you.
And exciting. And see, this is why I want to have this conversation, because one of the things that we focus on this show is helping sellers when it comes to increasing their close rate. Like, people just have a hard time with that. One of the areas, Marcus, that comes up over and over and over again for sales reps are coming across objections, coming across challenges, roadblocks, whatever you want to call them, and figuring out a way to best help the buyer make a decision, whether that's to go with them or not to go with them, but just overcoming those objections. And I want to be able to get some insight from you on that today. Like, how? What's your process? What works, Marcus? Give me.
I love it. And I love the way you framed it up. That's why we get along, right? It's not about like trying to like convince them to buy when they get an objection. It's simply helping them come to a decision that's going to be best for them. And I think it's really, really important. That's why it's so key to detach from the outcomes. And I think it's important to understand before we go into the framework is understanding what most people are doing right now And what most people usually do is prospect gives some sort of objection, something like, "Let me think about it," or I don't do 3-year contracts," or whatever the objection is going to be, or it's too expensive, whatever it's going to be. And immediately after, the sales professional, most generally speaking, most of them are going to have a bunch of rebuttals in their head. They'll say, okay, they say this, I'm going to start saying that. And then they kind of start like, they try to overcome by saying, like, well, do you remember this or X, Y, and Z? This is why this makes sense, etc. And they're trying to like convince this other person. And usually it doesn't really work. And usually it creates more resistance, and that process kind of pushes away. So when you want it to be true, you want to have a better methodology of being able to create a space where the prospect feels comfortable having an honest and open conversation with you, so you can really see what's really on their mind. So the framework I teach is very simple. It's called the HEART framework. That's HEART. And you could do this for any objection you get thrown your way. If they throw any objection at your way, you can kind of run through this very similar model. So let's kind of break it down step by step. So let's just say, for example, if the objection is, let me think about it, or let me review for a couple days and get back to you, kind of the classic stall in which eventually they'll probably just ghost you, right? So we'll talk about how to overcome that. So let's just say they say, I want to think about, give me a couple days, kind of process everything. So go into the H first, which is we want to make them feel heard. That's showing a little bit of empathy. And that might be as simple as, totally appreciate that. I'm glad you share that. I definitely want you to take some time to think about it. Notice my tonality here. It's comforting. It's soft. It's not aggressive. I want to put them at ease, and I want to validate what's on their mind is something that's actually on their mind. So at that point, then you want to go into the E, which is elaborate. You want them now to elaborate what the objection is about. And that can be very simple phrases such as, can you tell me a little more about that? Or can you explain what you mean by that? So in this situation, they want to think about it. Say, hey, no problem. Definitely want to take some time to think about this. Can you help me understand what's on your mind? And this right now, we're opening the door up. And this is at the E, the elaborate, is where you want to spend a lot of time on to really uncover the root objection. And I say the root objection intentionally because sometimes you get a symptom of a concern, and we try to solve for that, but there's a different cause in mind. So let me give you an example. Let's just say they say, well, I like what you showed me so far, but we just don't sign 3-year contracts, and that's what you showed us. So we really need to think about that. Now, again, that's still a symptom. We don't actually know what the cause of the concern about 3-year term is. So you can go a little deeper. Hey, can you tell me a little more? What about the 3-year term concerns you? They might be like, well, historically we've only signed like only 1 year, so joining 3 years it's just 3 times as long, and we don't really do that. That's still a symptom still. So again, you go deeper in the elaborate. Hey, so tell me more. What do you mean specifically? Well, in the past, we used to sign these 3-year agreements and we've been burned. What do you mean? Well, we had signed with X vendor and then we had issues. They couldn't take care of it. And we were just stuck for the term of 3 years. Got it. So now we're getting a little bit deeper here. So now the elaborate, we're really uncovering what the root cause is. So you can go deeper from there. And that might sound something like, so if I understand you right, the concern you have is not necessarily the term. It's more so if you're stuck with our service model or software, that you basically feel like you're in jail, locked in for 3 years, and there's no way out. Is that right? Yes, that's it. Got it. So now we have a good understanding that the real concern is basically being stuck if they're not happy. So now we have H, we have E. Now we want to go to A, which is, aside from that objection they just mentioned, is there anything else? Because sometimes what ends up happening is we maybe do a good job of uncovering the objection and we try to overcome it now. But suddenly, after you overcome it, they give you another objection. And you do the same thing, and you go kind of back and forth in this proverbial, boxing match, back and forth, trading punches until you're worn out, they're worn out, and you're just like, oh my gosh, I'll just have a follow-up call later, and nobody really wins there.
Yeah.
So now we just want to make sure that's the only thing on their mind. So we basically you can use the word aside to help you remember. Hey, aside from being concerned that if you're not happy, you're basically going to be stuck for whatever term it's going to be, is there anything else that's on your mind that's giving you pause about partnering together? And we're just isolating it out. So now if they
Mm-hmm.
say, well, there's something else, now you might go a little deeper. Or if they say, nope, I think that's pretty much it. Based on what they're saying, you may want to add a little bit. So just want to make sure there's nothing else. There's nothing else. That's really it. Got it. So now you know, cool. Between you and potentially closing them, if you will, is that objection. Now, what I want to do here at this point is I'm actually going to have them sell themselves on the value of the solution, because most people at this point, they're going to say, well, let me give you a reason why you should do a 3-year contract with us and blah, 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 blah. Instead of that, you're going to reverse it. You're going to have them tell you. So we're going to have them do the R, which is reclarify value. That's the R, reclarify value. And it's super simple. You say, God, that makes a lot of sense. Hey, can you remind me again, Donald, what, aside from the term, what did you like the most about our solution? And I'll even tell you. They might be like, oh, I like this, I like that, I like this, I like that. And then you can help them bridge the gap between what they like and how it's going to help their business if they don't make their own gap, if they don't make their own connection themselves. Well, hey, how will that help your business? How will that impact your customers? How will that impact your clients? How will that impact your teams? So they start going through all that. They start telling you, well, I list like this, like this. And of course, you can remind them some of those things, right? And then you go to the T, right? Because at this point, you just shifted their brain from the objection to what they like about you. So in a different state of mind, you may potentially see at this point, Donald, they may not even have that same objection anymore. They might be like,
No.
You're right. This is a no-brainer. That's fine. Let's do it. Right. Now, let's just say if they're not quite there yet and you still have to overcome the objection, then you go to T, which is transition to a close. And that's where is your opportunity to overcome that objection. Right. So this is where, depending on what the objection is, you need to know how to actually overcome it. So for example, here, maybe if it's the term thing, maybe you have some sort of guarantee on the agreement where if they're not happy, they can basically send in a letter to customer success and have them take care of it. They don't fix it, whatever. And at that point, you can bring that up. So now it's like, hey, so just make sure you're on the same page, Donald. Like, I'm really glad you brought this up to my attention, and I want you to know this is my fault because I didn't show you the most important thing on an agreement, which is actually our happiness guarantee. And let me pull it up. You pull the agreement up, and here it says, like, if you're not happy for any reason and any time, whether it's 1 day in, 2 days in, 1 year in, 3 years in, 100 years in, doesn't even matter. All you have to do is send in a letter to our CS manager, who's their name's inside here. If we don't fix it, we walk away. Because frankly, we didn't do the best job to keep your business, which is the most important. And you'll have that in writing as well. Does that put your mind at ease? So you can really see how powerful that can be if you spend running the whole frame, because now you spent 89% of that whole section right there having them talk about the situation. So they can mentally walk through the scenario and come to their own decision on what to actually do next.
Love it. I love it. A couple points to this. Going back to the very top, the tonality, even from all the way back there. Why do you feel that makes a difference?
So tonality is the tonality that you delivers a very different message to them. It helps show if you're either being genuine or disingenuous, if you actually truly care, or are you just being self-serving? So, for example, even if I go into like the H, making them feel hurt, if I said, "Hey, I can totally appreciate that," definitely take some time to think about that, and I kind of pause and that kind of soaks in, versus, "Yeah, I can totally appreciate that. You should definitely think about it." So, anyways, can you tell me more what you mean specifically? Wording wise, it's virtually the same thing, but the delivery is not putting them at ease. So if we're not careful, we're going to put their brain, the prospect's brain, into this fight or flight mode. And we don't want them to. In fact, we need to create a situation where they feel comfortable, right? They need to feel that emotional security to be able to have a conversation with you. Because our goal is not to make them feel bad or make them feel uncomfortable, but we want to have a conversation with them and just have the truth. Because the truth is, you've probably done a good job through the whole process. You're probably a nice person. You probably have their interests, hopefully in mind, and they probably sense that. They may also be scared to tell you what's really on their mind.
Yeah.
So it's so important to utilize tonality as a tool to make them more comfortable. And this is for any situation. right? Like the tonality, how you say certain things completely shifts the mood and what's going on. That's why, if you're married and you talk to your spouse at a certain tonality, they know the feeling's very different. If my
Mm-hmm.
wife says Marcus versus Marcus, I know the following conversation is going to be very different.
Ain't that the truth? Um, I want to go back to the anything else.
Mhm.
Why do you feel so many sellers? Why do you feel sellers don't go deep on that one?
I think they fear it. I think they
What do you mean?
fear
Go
the
deep.
truth, right? They fear to go into even ask that level of question and go that deep. Um, but also, I think a lot of them are so focused on the rebuttal.
Yeah.
So when they hear what they want to hear, even the initial might go a little deeper. They're like, "But I think I know what it is." And I'll give you a really, really good example, right? So in my corporate career, a few years back, so typically most people leave with a 5-year contract to sign, and most people end up getting a 3-year.
Mm-hmm.
Now I consistently got 5 and 7 and 10-year contracts
Sheesh.
because because very, very intentional. Because whenever someone gave me the objection about term, I knew that wasn't really the objection.
Yeah.
But in most people's head, when they heard it, they're like, oh, they're worried about a contract. That's what they're worried about. But they're not really thinking, but what specifically are they worried about in the contract? They're not really thinking that. And the reality
Mm-hmm.
was is like, working with these business owners, I knew their biggest concern was either was going to be number one, they're not happy and they're stuck, they get buyer's remorse, right? Because they would tell me, because I'll dive in deep. Or number two, they might tell me, or if their business went out of business, they didn't want to be personally liable to it, even if they went like bankrupt for some reason, because sometimes they're new businesses as well. So,
Yeah.
but because I knew when they said, "Hey, I don't sign, I don't want to sign a 5-year contract," I could dive in deep. And this way, by actually diving deep and diagnosing what the root objection is, I can overcome and handle it effectively. So, for example, if the surface layer was, I'm worried about the term, but the root issue that was they might go out of business and they're scared about that. If I just try to
That's a
talk about
little
the service
different.
guarantee, that wouldn't matter. They'd be like, "What do you? I don't really care about that." They'd be like, "I don't really. My worry is actually I might go out of business. I don't be stuck with it." Right. So we have to solve the right problem with the right solution. And for salespeople, you want to challenge your own assumptions. When you hear that objection, you want to go deeper. You want to cover what it is, but also you want to make sure there's no other ones. Because what you don't want to do is get surprised. Like nobody likes
Yeah.
surprises. That's just reality. So if you uncover that to be true, it makes it much easier. Now, on top of that, it also requires tremendous discipline to not handle that objection when you get it, to actually pause, go deeper, and then also say, hey, aside from that objection, once you uncover it, is there anything else? It takes a lot of discipline to actually do as well, because you have to hold
Yeah.
yourself back, because you might know, all right, cool, they just told me it's like about the business going out of business. I know how to overcome this. But you have to like hold yourself back, rein yourself in, make sure that's the only one, and then that way you know how to actually overcome it. Or you might need to stack up multiple objections in a row so you can overcome all those. And you might realize if there's too many to overcome, you may need to set up a follow-up meeting and address it in a different way.
Yeah.
So it takes more discipline. It takes a lot of self-control and self-awareness to be able to do.
And I find that I think that's probably where one of the big issue is. Um I like barbecue, Marcus. And once not once, but I lived out in Idaho and I went to school out there. And I remember one winter we were like, screw this. It was this weather was kind of breaking just a little bit and it wasn't anything too crazy, but we're Florida kids, right? There's a few Florida guys and we're roommates. Let's barbecue. So we got some chicken and we want to put some chicken on the grill. And then we didn't thaw the chicken properly.
Mm.
Crank up the heat, Marcus, and so you got these
Yeah.
burnt outside dark
Yeah.
chicken, and then inside
Yeah.
is like frozen.
Yeah.
Um, and I
Yeah.
think oftentimes with objections is that same way.
Mm.
Like
Mm.
sellers, they are so excited for the outcome, the food
Yes.
that they can eat, that they just go straight in the heat. Like just burn it up, just
Yes.
go turn up the heat. Let's give them a discount. Let's push this. Let's try
Mm-hmm.
to do a trick, a closing tactic on them
Right.
when in actuality they didn't do the necessary thing or try to overcome the objection when they didn't realize what the true objection was. Here you are going off course and causing more problems delaying the
Mm-hmm.
deals, when in actuality, if you had the gumption or the
Mm-hmm.
discipline, as you would share, to go deeper, you probably would get more. And I think that comes with the tenure as well as the maturity, and
Mm-hmm.
to be able to have a conversation on that
Mm.
level. So, bro,
Oh yeah,
I love the
I,
framework.
I love that example, right? And I think it's like it's we talk about in sales, right? It's like being able to detach from the outcome and actually focus on the process. That's why frameworks and processes are really important for a reason,
Hmm.
because when you stick to the process, the fundamentals, just like in any sport, that's where the
Yep.
real magic is made, is being able to do it really, really, really well and being consistent with it. That will serve you much further. It's just like there's basics to barbecuing, right?
Come on,
If you
man.
don't do it in a certain order, you're gonna have crispy on the outside, raw on the inside. That's a bad situation to be in.
You're gonna get E. coli, man. End up in a
Yeah,
hospital.
you'll get E. coli. Is what you're gonna get. It's a
Go get some.
non-decide. You much rather get ghost in that situation instead of getting E. coli. Ghosting's way better than getting E. coli.
I take the ghost.
Yeah.
uh,
Uh,
um, I love this framework, Marcus. Let's say I'm an AE or a BDR, and I'm listening to this, and I want to go about practicing it. What's my first step that I should do when to do this? Should I write it down? Do I put it on my screen? Do I listen to the show over and over again? How do I go about practicing and start doing this? Because I know I'm probably going to mess up the first time.
mhm. Oh, 100%. So, as the saying goes, amateurs play more than they practice. Professionals practice more than they play. And it's important to understand whenever you do a framework, you're going to probably botch it the first 100 times you do it.
Mm,
So when you're practicing, a really simple way to do it is, even if you, whether it's a digital flashcards or paper flashcards, doesn't really matter. I would go and I would just write down a bunch of objections, right, on flashcards, common objections, mix them up, and then on like another sheet of paper, write out HEART, and pull up a random objection, pretend the prospect said it, and start walking through the framework, and really focus on HEAR. Like, don't even do the T for now. Just focus on HEAR, because that's actually the hardest part, is the front and having them talk.
yeah.
And you start doing that, you can get better and better by doing it, right? If you practice with somebody else, it's even better. Now, on top of that, I'm a firm believer, how you do one thing is how you do everything. How can
Hmm.
you internalize this and do this in every part of your life? Your spouse is
Come
upset
on,
with
man.
you, right? She's upset with you. She's like, "Oh my God, you didn't put the dishes away again." Hey, babe, I totally appreciate that. I'm really glad you shared that with me. Make him feel heard. Elaborate. Can you tell me a little more what's on your mind? Right? Get her to elaborate. Go deep. Aside from that, anything else. Well, also, like, Marcus, it's not just that. You don't put your clothes away. You don't do this. You might realize a bunch of other stuff, right? You know? So you can still, even with the same problem, you're not worried about the transition to the clothes. You're just trying to make sure they feel heard, and you can
Yeah.
really uncover the root objection is. Because reality is the root objection might be you're a sloppy pig, and you gotta like clean your act up a little bit, right? If you get my point. But my point is, when you practice even in life with anybody, everyone, your family, your friends, you actually become a better communicator, and
Yeah.
they feel more heard. And also, sometimes you may find, if you practice with your spouse or someone close to you, they're actually not that upset with you. It's just
No.
they've had a rough day, and it's actually inconsequential. And just like our prospects, they have rough days too. And sometimes they're just not seeing the right way. By walking through methodology like this, it opens their mind to realize, actually, it's a non-objection. Let's just make this happen. So perfect practice makes perfect. Do it every single day and everywhere you go.
Love it. Marcus, if folks are curious about what you do, if they want to connect with you, maybe they want to learn the framework from you, take one of your programs, go through something that you have, how did they go about connecting with you? What's the best way?
Awesome. So I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, so you can look at Marcus Shea on LinkedIn and connect with me there. You can also get a free copy of my Wall Street Journal best-selling book, bentley.co/book. It's bentley.co/book. A lot of cool frameworks inside there as well. And obviously, if you go to my site, you'll be able to access me as well on my site too.
Marcus, thank you for taking the time to come on a show today, sharing your heart with us and helping us to make more dough in the process.
That was
Appreciate you, man.
good. Thanks for having me
You
on.
like that? Hey, that was Marcus Chan. If you haven't done so already, go connect with him on LinkedIn. Tell him that you heard him here on the Sales Evangelist podcast. I know he would greatly appreciate that, as well as he would greatly appreciate the fact that you're applying the concepts that he shared. You can find all of his information down below in the show notes. Now, speaking of show notes, you can find all of our sponsor details down there as well. Please take advantage of those offers. I've been able to connect with them to be able to get that opportunity so you can take advantage of those benefits. So go ahead and do so. You're going to love it. As always, we want you to thrive. We want you to succeed. We want you to raise your level of thinking. We want you to be able to 3 to 5x your sales pipeline. We want you to close twice as many deals. Most importantly, we want you to go out and do big things. Thanks so much for watching.